Hello, everyone. Welcome. How's everybody doing today? We're halfway through the week. I know I am excited for the weekend. Gonna give it another 20, 30 seconds. Let a couple more people join. See, they're all coming in. All right. We're going to get started as more people join, but again, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Melissa. I am the Senior Field Marketing Manager here at Truv. We're going to keep things pretty relaxed during today's webinar. This isn't a lecture, it's more of a conversation and meant to be helpful to each of you. Over the next hour, we're going to take a deep dive into the latest Encompass updates and the VOIE enhancements. We are recording the session, so if at any point you need to drop or you have to get a quick phone call, whatever it may be, I will make sure to share this out to you in the next couple of days. If you've got any questions, just drop them in the chat and we will get to them as we go or at the end. But we will make sure to get to them or we will follow up with you afterwards. So, with that being said, let's dive in. Bear, take it away.
Yep. Thanks for the intro, Melissa. So yeah, my name is Bear. I work on the product side here at Truv on our Encompass integration, and a lot of other kind of like lending integrations related to that. So today I just wanted to demo one flow that we have, which is doing the initial verification through Encompass Consumer Connect, and then showing how that order can then be imported with the loan file once it's submitted to Encompass LOS. And then we also have some examples on how automated service ordering can be used with this. And right, it can be used for initial refresh orders. And then we'll go into more about some of the features in Encompass, and some other enhancements related to ordering and the layout after that. So feel free to jump in at any point if you have any questions, or comments or anything. I'm happy to kind of address those as they come. And I don't know if anyone here uses Encompass Consumer Connect. I recognize a few names. I know some of you don't, but does anyone here use that platform? Or if not, what platforms do you use? If you can drop it into the chat. But yeah, Encompass Consumer Connect is just a out of the box point of sale integration that they have for taking in the loan application. It's a product offered by ICE. And so similar to right others like Encino or Tidal Wave or Lender Logics, the idea is the borrower will come in, right? You'll have your website, what I was just showing. And then once they click apply now, right, they'll enter this application flow. So here they can enter in some details about the loan, right? Maybe purchase, enter in a price, um, down payment percent, and then as they proceed, right, all of the kind of core fundamental application details. And here is where the first kind of decision comes in for the verifications. So if they're applying for joint credit, right, going to basically use the borrower and the co-borrower's income to qualify. They'll select this, and this will then, right, cause us to trigger a verification for both of those individuals. Whereas if they select no, it'll only be for the borrower. And then here we'll enter in the borrower's name. So just add myself. And all of these details are stuff they would have to kind of enter in anyway, right? So there's no real additional friction here. It's being introduced by this process. And then now we'll enter in the co-borrower. So we'll do Okay. So we've entered in some basic borrower information. This is kind of like the key thing that's needed. Right. This also is pretty standard address. So you can just drop in residential address for the current and then housing, right? Expenses. This all they would theoretically enter in, not really necessary to show the verification. Um, assets, right? So ECC does have the option to add in assets manually. This is also something we want to build out in the future. So once they're able to support our assets product or verification of assets product in here, we will expand the verification experience similar to how I'm going to show with income and employment. So once they hit income and employment, there's an authorization page. And then here's where kind of the decision branches. So the borrower could either enter in all these details manually, or they can create, import that data. So a key step for this is to create an account, and lenders can either put this at the beginning of their process, which is fairly typical. That way, the person doesn't have to, kind of go through this step midway through the flow like I'm doing. It's just not configured this way in our account. So I'll just create a quick account here. Okay. So I'll create the account and then I'll log into it. And right, theoretically, this was all done before they even entered the application flow. Okay, so now, right, once they're logged in, they have the option to import or manually enter. So if they go to import, that's where we'll open up Truv's experience. First, they have to do a quick information confirmation page. This is required by ICE, but right, if they filled in all these details prior, there's nothing needed here and they can just press next. And then after that, it's going to open up our Truv verification experience. So in the beginning, right, I said joint credit. That means we'll show the borrower and the co-borrower to do a verification so they can select whoever they'd like to start with. All right, let's start with the borrower. And that will basically open up the Truv embedded order experience here. So all of this can be customized, right? Including like, verbiage in the background, logo, color scheme, even right the categories that are shown here or the text. This all can be customized in your templates in the dashboard. So if I go in here, right, as the applicant, let me find my employer. Let's say I work at Walmart, and then I'll go in, enter in my credentials, and then sign in. Once I'm signed in, then it'll take me back to this page, right? And here, there's a couple ways you can kind of customize this experience. So you can either have the kind of order for this borrower complete as soon as they've connected one thing, or you can have them be able to connect additional income sources. So that's how I have it set up here. So I can add, right, if I maybe have another employer. You can also, right, customize the text here. So maybe you want the two last years of employment or all of their current employers. This is where, right, in your template, you can kind of add that as the header, connect all of your current employments. And then in this experience here, right, they'll see Walmart, but then maybe they'll know, oh, I have, another job at Chipotle, and then they can connect that. Or if they're done, they can press finish and share. So if they press finish and share, we'll basically now take the extracted data, right, generate the report. We'll see a brief loading screen here. And then it takes me back to the borrower selection, right? So we said joint credit. Now I have the opportunity to connect the co-borrower, or if I, only have maybe myself, the borrower present, I can just press done. Well, let's go ahead and connect something for the co-borrower. So again, right, same experience for them. Let's say they worked at Home Depot, and I'll go ahead and sign in. And again, they can press finish and share. So once they press finish and share the second time, and something's connected for each, we'll automatically close them out of that experience and take them back into ECC here. So now in the background, we're taking all of that report data and passing it to Consumer Connect. And one thing that's pretty neat, right, is in your dashboard, if you have access or frontline staff have access, they can see these orders appearing. So in this column here, right, I see these were the orders for Bear Strayer and Reed Strayer, right? I connected Walmart and Home Depot, which uses Workday. And so I can see here on our backend, right, these orders have come in through the ECC source, they're processing. I refresh. I can see that the reports are already ready. So invoice, all of that detail can be found here. And then same with the, okay, so this one's still processing, but should be done soon. Simultaneously, right on the borrower side, so they can continue to proceed through the application. So they don't need to fill in any of this detail. And actually, as the data comes back, it will automatically overwrite into these fields. And then once it's overwritten, they have no way to edit it until it's done processing. So, right, this data is getting passed in. And one other configuration we actually allow is for you to customize which fields you want to pass in. So we've heard from some lenders, for example, we actually don't want to look at any of the bonus or overtime data because we want to review that kind of separately with our underwriters before it gets passed into the application. So that can be customized on our end, which fields you actually have us write back into here. Um, so the borrower can continue as they go through the rest of the experience and fill in the rest of the info. This tile will still be shown, and they can right kind of keep an eye on it. And as soon as the import is ready, they can be returned back to that page to review and finish. So they can add like see why this one is taking so long. I might have entered in a strange SSN actually. Any kind of questions so far on any part of this experience? I can show also, I mentioned, right, the customization templates that control the experience here. So I have a template dedicated for ECC that I've created in my account. And so here, right, as I was mentioning, you can control all those parts of the experience. So you can control the color that's shown right on kind of this page that was presented to them, all of the colors, all of the text on here as well. So we said, that we want to request your current income, but this can be adjusted however you would like. And then also right on like any success screens in that kind of bridge experience where they're actually connecting their employer, this can be customized. So if you would like to exclude, maybe gig or benefits providers, you can update that. You can also upload a list of companies that are maybe popular in your region or for this branch, and those will be shown as the kind of first options here. That way, maybe it's like easier, right? If they're just kind of looking at the first page, they can pick out what their employer is. Um, okay, let's go back. Okay, so this oh, perfect timing. This is done. Now, when it's done, I can go back to review. And at this point, right, I can just take a look. All the fields that were pulled in from the report are locked, as I mentioned, but anything else they can edit. And then once this is all done, right, they can return to the summary and submit. So once they submit, this application is now going to flow through to Encompass, which we can show in a second. Um, and at that point, right, all of the verification data is now like the primary source of data in the app. The Truv order that was done initially is also carried over and all those documents. So, right, if your team wants to review the pay stubs or the report in closer detail, that's all accessible right there. And yeah, the process is like it's pretty seamless. So we can open this up and take a look. And this is like essentially also how it works for any other point of sale system you might use, Encino or right like Lender Logics, et cetera, that I mentioned in the beginning. It there's like some nuance. It's not the same platform. It doesn't kind of show in exactly the same way, but we have a like a couple solutions that we've built to try to make this continuation as seamless as possible that we can also show if people are interested. So now let me find the order that I submitted. Let's see. What was it? I can see filter by. Yep. Okay. This is it. So when I open this loan, as I mentioned, all of that data was pulled in from ECC platform. So you see here all the personal information, the address, and then if I go to employment and income, all of the employer information. So I had my borrower's employer, my co-borrower's employer, all of that is now in the gross income, right? Employment info, current employment indicator, etc. If we go into the document folder, all of those files have also been pulled in here. So I can see the pay stubs that we extracted, invoices, the verification reports from Truv. Um, if I open this up, this has the report ID. So if you want to go ahead and submit this for uh, like AUS and to get rep and warranty relief, you can take this report ID and just drop it into the GSE fields here. So the team can, grab the report for each borrower and then just enter them into the Truv GSE field in Encompass. This isn't done automatically, which is it's just a limitation on the ECC side, but once they kind of support this mapping, we will also automatically pass that data in. Oh, okay. Sorry, looks like they logged me out. And for all this experience, right, I've been demoing it in LO Connect. All of this works though the same, whether it's LO Connect or the desktop web application. Right, interface looks slightly different for maybe like the 1003 in those pages, but the functionality with Truv is exactly the same. Okay, back in. Okay, so let me pull up that loan again, continue showing. Um, okay, great. So I think I showed the documents, the report, how you can add the report ID into that GSE field. Now I'll also show the Truv interface. So, like I said, this is going to look the same whether it's right web version or desktop version. But once you log in to that loan, regardless of location, you'll see those verification orders that were done in ECC pulled into the Encompass LOS platform for this loan. So you see, right, I connected Walmart and Home Depot. This status error is a small like Encompass bug. It doesn't affect the performance or action or anything, and it's something we're working on fixing with them. And so here you'll see you can download these reports. You can also refresh the data, um, and this is where right the team can really kind of continue the process from here. So for example, right, if you know, okay, I need to pull additional data or it's approaching closing and I need to, right, get a verification of employment refresh for this borrower, I can go in and just refresh this order data. So I have Home Depot here, and then I can trigger the refresh, and then I will see for this borrower a new refresh order sent out. So the way, right, the refresh data works versus creating a new order is if you refresh, we'll try to use those existing credentials that we have to go into that provider, pull the data, and just generate a new report with that new data as of when you requested it. And if it's a new order altogether, that is where the borrower is going to have to go in and actually re-authenticate for a refresh, right? If we're not able to authenticate, maybe there's MFA or they changed their credentials. In that case, they will have to still re-authenticate. But there's like a pretty solid chance that they don't have to actually take any action. And in that case, we don't even notify them. Um, so that is the continuation. I think, one other part of this whole experience here is the automation. So if you're using a point of sale like ECC or anything else, we have a lot of automation solutions that are built into Encompass's ASO or automated service ordering. And it can be very, very customized, right, to kind of adapt to whatever scenario or kind of platform integrations you have. And it's a really effective way to, kind of really enforce a rules-based approach to when to order Truv and in what scenarios. And really kind of like focus it in on the cases where you need the verification that might not be captured elsewhere. So we got income verified through ECC, but say I also wanted to capture an assets verification for this borrower. So right, there's no native solution in ECC for them to do that process. So what you can do is set up an automated service rule in Encompass, and it can be triggered on right any field, maybe when the loan officer gets assigned, or maybe when it flips to a specific milestone, like application or something, or processing, or maybe when there's intent to proceed. And basically, once that triggers, you can say, okay, right, if assets hasn't been ordered or if income hasn't been ordered yet, create the order for those borrowers. So I'll do a quick demo here on automating the asset order. So I have it hooked up to a pretty basic field. It's just the city field, right? But as I mentioned, this could be anything like a loan milestone or a intent to proceed, any kind of date, anything you need. And so once that field gets set, then what happens is we go and try to create an order for whatever product types you want. So in this case, I have it set up to try to order both assets and income, but it could be, either or, however you want to structure it. So actually I turned off income because we already have it through ECC. So here I have assets, right? So for both of these borrowers, I went ahead and created a verification of assets order. In this particular case, there was no banks already in the loan file. So this order is basically going to have a kind of like an open-ended request where they can just go in and connect anything that they need. But if there were banks already in the 1003, like Chase with maybe a checking account or Wells Fargo, et cetera, those would also be included in this order. Um, so I can go ahead now and complete these, and I can show an email also just to show the borrower's experience here. So when an automated order is created, a couple things happen. One is we automatically send out um, a notification to your loan team to tell them that we created an order. So the goal of this, right, is if this automation is happening on its own, right, you still might need a loan officer or processor to be notified so that they can then tell the borrower, hey, we sent out a request. Can you complete this? So I triggered that automated assets order, and now from like the loan officer perspective, right, I would receive this email that says, hey, Bearster has been notified. We sent a verification link for assets verification. Upon successful logging, you'll receive an assets report, and it has a loan number, et cetera. And then same for the co-borrower, right? Because I sent out two. And then when I go now to the borrower's experience here, so from that perspective, right, I've also received an email. So I've received a request to verify my assets. This, right, all this template verbiage can be customized as I showed before with the templates. It looks like for this template, I had a kind of crazy purple button, but this all right could be aligned to my kind of brand coloring. And when I receive this email, all I need to do is click verify and it'll open up this experience. So as I mentioned, right, we didn't put any bank in this request. There was no bank in the loan file. So they'll basically be able to just open it and connect anything they want. So, if I'm the borrower, I'm like, oh, okay, I have Chase, let me connect to that. And then actually, this is a production order. So it's going to take me into the actual kind of Chase login experience, right? So I open up the Chase webpage. I'm not actually going to log in with my credentials here. So I'll just take us to a kind of like a sandbox experience that we have in production here. So if you imagined, right, Truv Bank was my bank, then I can log in here. And right, again, I can go ahead and connect anything else. So once I finish, then that experience is complete. And now, again, right, on the loan team side, so the loan officer or the processor, whoever you want to be the default recipient for status updates, they will all receive now an email that says Bear Read connected their assets provider. So I'll show that in a minute or two once I get it. And then on the Encompass side, you'll see that order flip to done. So I see verification of assets here. I see Truv Bank, right, which I'd connected, is done. And then we're now kind of pulling all that asset data into the loan file and into the E folder. So if I go into, I guess I can just download the report from here. But if I open this report, download button, I'll see the assets report that I requested, right? So Truv Bank, it has all the parameters that I had set. So days requested was 60. The deposit threshold was 500, right? This was set in my template. And I see all of the account information, right? So Chase, or not Chase, Truv Bank, there were three accounts returned. And I can see a account info summary of those, account owner summary, and then a list of transactions for the period, right? So it was 60 days requested. I'll see 60 days of transactions here with some key categories tagged like direct deposits, peer-to-peer loans, et cetera. And that kind of continues over all of the accounts. And then this report, right, has also been passed into the e folder. So I can show that there. So you'll see a new verifications folder with the invoice and then that same VOA report. So if your team prefers to just work out of the e folder, once they get that email that it's been done, they can just jump right in and pull that report out. And speaking of that email, right, it looks like this. Just received it. So, right, say now I'm the loan officer. I just received this email. Order for Reed Strayer has been completed. So it has my name, my loan number, my email. And then in the summary, it'll tell me what I connected. So Truv Bank, right, was connected. It's for assets. And how was this ordered, right? So this was ordered automatically through ASO. And it's kind of like all the important details I need. So once I see that, I can jump into the e folder and see the report. The next step, right, might be running AUS. So in this case, once the order is completed, we'll automatically write that report ID for income and assets into the report ID fields. Um, so for income and employment, it's these fields, and for assets, it's these fields on the bottom. I might have blocked it by being in the loan, but right as soon as I exit, it would be done. It's just kind of like showing this in quick succession, so it got blocked. And then let's see. So a couple of the things that we can discuss also, right, are the other actions that are available. So we talked about this a bit on maybe a previous one, but we have capability to generate new reports. So if, especially for an assets example, right, I got back this whole report and it had, maybe more data than I needed. I see all these banks, I see all these transactions. What I can do right from here is I can just generate a new assets report and I can select right which accounts I want to include. So I can exclude maybe the investment, maybe I just want to show the savings, and I can also select some new subset of days requested. Maybe 60, right, had too much. I only want the last 30, or I can pick a custom period. So maybe I'm trying to verify that there was some earnest money deposit or something that happened in February, but I don't want to pull all the nitty gritty details associated with it. So I can pick some specific window of data for this kind of new report here, like that. What did I do? Oh, it's less than 30 days. Yeah, so I can do like that. And then right, we'll generate a new report. The update loan data feature as well is helpful. So in this case, right, this loan was imported from the point of sale. Um, I had income verified, which is great. That income data was like the source of truth for the loan. But assets, right, I didn't have any asset information. So we automatically created an order for the borrowers to connect to their banks, and they did that, and that's great. And now I just want to kind of pull that all into the loan, right, as the starting point. So we have this feature here, right, to update the loan data. And what the team can do is basically just take a look at this to understand what is currently in the 1003 for these fields. So I'll see in the 1003, right, as we know, I had nothing for any of these accounts. And now the Truv report shows me the data that was returned there. So if you recall, right, Truv Bank had the checking account. I have a redacted account number. I have the balance, the owner. There was the savings account that had all that, and then there was the investment account, which we didn't assign a type for. So I can select all those and then overwrite that data to keep it right clear for the loan team in terms of passing that in. We show this little update time countdown so that they know right to exit the loan in a set amount of time, so that the update works kind of the first time and there's not any confusing back and forth or a question on why it didn't work. So yeah, that'll work in about a minute. I think let me stop for a second. Does anyone have any questions or comments at that time? At this time, I can check the chat as well. Nothing. Can answer anything you might have top of mind is really uh, whatever is most helpful to you all. Okay, I'm going to go back into this loan. I think it's been about a minute, so let's see. Hopefully it was. Oh, maybe I went too early. Yeah, okay. While we wait for this to reprocess, I can show also a another update, or actually really quick, one thing I also wanted to talk about was the layout of the order status page here. So not sure if you all have noticed or been working on the kind of front line here, processing orders, but we've updated the layout of this view. So previously, the way we used to show it was a separate row, right, for every order. And there was no kind of sorting or grouping of those orders by product type or borrower. So what that did is made it a little bit confusing to see who had what verified, right? Because if it's all kind of like just sorted chronologically, you can't really tell if, Reed has income or assets and Bear has income and assets, especially right if there's more than one verification. So if I was to order maybe another verification for Bear here, you'll start to see the kind of problem. So now, right, this order that's new is grouped under income and it's grouped under the borrower that it's associated to, as opposed to just being like a separate row with kind of all new information. So this way, right, it's a bit easier to keep track of what products have been ordered for who. And then one other improvement that I want to show, I'll just start a new loan for this, is the ability to order both income and assets at the same time. So what I had shown right up until this point was kind of creating, separate orders. There was income done on one system, and then we created assets as a separate order. But one enhancement we've added is to allow you to create a verification request with both income and assets requested at the same time. And the purpose, right, is that the borrower receives one email and there's kind of like one request and one landing page that they log into to kind of connect everything, as opposed to previously where maybe there's like two separate emails and they have to find each one and open each one separately, and oftentimes they'd be sent at the same time. So it just added a bit of extra like back and forth on this. So let me start a fresh loan and I can show you ordering both. And in this case, I'll add in some employer. So I'll add in, let's say, Costco. So this is in the 1003 income and employment section. And then also for bank, I can add in some institutions that were requested. So say these. Okay. So now I'll go through and show ordering both of these product types at once. So the new option for this is just verification of income and assets. So you have kind of a clear, right, combination of these two. And when I click this, what it's going to show me is a column that shows like all of the accounts per product type. So we had Costco for the income, and then we had Chase and Wells Fargo for assets. We have all of the usual columns, right, that each one would have separately. So we have the success rate for all three of these. We see that these are high conversion companies with Truv. And then, right, for assets, we have the 2 days requested in large deposit fields. But for income, we don't. So these are left empty. So when I create this order, it's going to create one verification request that will get sent to the borrower um, to complete via email. We still summarize this kind of right, as I mentioned, into the corresponding product types. So you see income is grouped here and then assets are grouped here. But on the borrower side, when I receive this, it's one verification request instead of two. So let me grab that email. Mhm. Okay. So I got the email and right, this text can be customized as I mentioned. So if you want to say your income and assets, um, or however you want to kind of structure the text, that can be added there. And then when I open the experience, right, we'll see both of the verification requests in one. So, right, as you recall, I requested Costco for payroll and then Chase and Wells Fargo for bank. So I can go through and this is production, so it's not going to give me an easy way to just to kind of get that data. So I'll get an error here, but what I can do is just to show you, I can connect the Truv bank. So um, in this order, right, I requested a few things. The borrower can also connect anything else that they need. So let's say I wanted to connect Truv payroll provider. And then since these banks won't let me log in, I'll just connect to Truv Bank, which is our handy testing bank in production. Okay. And then Yep, so those are the login experiences of each. Um, yep. And so then once this is submitted, all of that data goes back into Encompass. I I don't have the ability to complete this because I turned it off my account, but um, right, you can basically skip these as a borrower, which is like the default setting. And once that's done, all of these are returned back into the Encompass instance. And this all right works also for automated service ordering. So through ASO, right, we can set up some rule to create this multi-product order, or if you want to create the single orders that we showed before separately, it can kind of support either pathway. Let's go back to our other loan here, where we had some connections. And so one thing I also wanted to show is the another way that the automation workflow can help help out your team. So automation, right, can work for creating the initial order, which is what we had showed for this assets case. But it can also be configured for the refresh orders. So similar to the initial order setup, you set some rule, you set some like condition, right? You set the type of report that you want to get back, and then you set some field that it will trigger on. So for this loan scenario, I had created a an automation rule to create a deposit-based verification of employment refresh on any asset connections when the like a field was updated. So field 15. Again, this can be like the closer being assigned or closing milestone. And so what happened is when I set that field, since Reed had a assets connection that was done, it created a new order to refresh that assets connection. And in that scenario I had set up, I basically only requested the deposit-based verification of employment. So, right, say I got for assets validation of income, employment, and assets through SSV, then the employment typically expires pretty quickly, and to recapture that verification of employment through assets, what I can do is just refresh that assets connection, but only request back data that proves they're still employed there. So that would be the deposit-based verification of employment. And I can show what the report looks like. So this report is similar to the VOA one, but what it does is it strips out all of the amounts, right? So all of the balances, all of the transaction amounts, and it also filters the transactions to only include deposits. So the purpose behind this report, right, is to show that um, using my assets and my transactions, I'm still employed at, maybe like DoorDash, for example, because here, right, on April 6th, maybe this was the last pay period expected, I see a direct deposit from this employer. Um, so this report also has a report ID, which will automatically get added into the report ID field. And then when the team runs AUS, um, after this is done, right, it'll basically pass this data back to GSEs, and they can then use the stream of direct deposits here to just to refresh the employment validation without actually affecting any income or asset validation that was accomplished through the earlier report. So that is kind of another cool use case, and really, right, the point to take away is that the automation can be really tailored to your specific scenario. So if you want to only right create refresh orders through automation and only for maybe a scenario where you get SSV, you can do that. Or if you want to create automation of the initial orders and you want to capture any borrowers who go through your POS and then they don't connect, right? So there's no like Truv order that can also be set up. And there's like really, a lot of ways to ensure that it captures kind of all the borrowers you need um, and excludes, also potentially high friction cases. So one thing we were looking at before when I created that other verification is this success rate. And all of our employers and banks are going to have a different success rate. And what this is just based on the historic conversion we see over the last 90 days for this provider. Do we see high success or high conversion, moderate or low or none? And right, something like this can also be included as a triggering condition in automation. So if you only want to order on cases where it's likely to succeed, it's a current employer or it's a likely to succeed bank, right? That can also be factored into that logic there. Um, Okay. Well, I think that was mainly what I wanted to demonstrate. I don't know if we have any questions. Any questions at all can be kind of anything, right? Mortgage, true related, um, any kind of platform or our dashboard as well. I showed that a little bit. Any kind of burning question you've been meaning to ask anyone over here? Um,
We've got a
just
very
to kind
quiet group this afternoon.
of, yeah, just to close the loop on the Truv dashboard and Encompass or whatever platform you're using as well. So, right, the Truv dashboard will always reflect the the status of any of these verifications that were done. So if I hop in here, right, I can see all of the orders that were created um, through some of these other solutions. So in the production mode is where I did it. So, right, all of those orders that we had created we're verifying are visible in here for the right. This was the multi-product order. This was the VOA order that was then refreshed for the DVOE. And right, if you're trying to track orders created through automation, we have a created by column here that will show those directly. So automated service ordering will indicate that it was created through this automation script, so you can look at those specifically. If I want to filter by just those, right, I can select that here, apply the filter, and I'll see all of the automated orders as opposed to like manually created ones through the other values. Yeah, last call for any questions. I think if not, we're at the hour. We can probably call it here. If you have any questions or comments on anything we demoed, feel free to reach out to me. My email is just bear.strayer@truv.com. Happy to answer any of your questions, or you can reach out to Melissa as well.
Thank you everyone for attending. I
Yeah.
will follow up with you all in a couple days with the recording. And like Bear mentioned, please reach out if you have any questions at all. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.